Hello again. Welcome to a special edition of CropLife Retail Week. I'm Eric Sfiligoj, CropLife Magazine's editor, here today with special guest David Eddy from the West Coast. David, welcome.
Thank you, Eric, very much. I'm here in Modesto, California, where I've been based for the last 20 years. 22 years I've been with Meister Media. Was born in Minnesota, so I haven't always lived in the West, is I guess all I'm getting to. And but when I initially came on with the company, my role was more of a Western editor. So I really covered, water through specialty crops. I should emphasize American fruit grower and American vegetable grower. But I got spread too thin. So in recent years, I've been focusing on American vegetable grower, American fruit grower, because we cover tree nuts in there. And I think everyone in the US knows tree nuts have just exploded in California, and pistachios are our latest billion-dollar nut. Almonds long since past that, and walnuts too. And so we've got an awful lot of tree nut readers. So I've really been focusing on water, and I'm ready for questions, Eric.
Okay, well, yeah, so not to date myself, but then it sounds like when the Minneapolis Lakers decided Los Angeles was a better place to be, you may have followed them, or is that a little before your time?
It's before my time. I actually grew up on the East Coast, so I'm a Celtics fan. So,
Oh, all right. Well, you have something to cheer for this year then.
well, actually, it's my boyhood team against the team I've rooted for the last 30 years, sort of like on the West Coast. My kids are all Warriors fans, so I kind of
Yeah,
had to be one. So it's kind of interesting for me.
yeah, and I know, in past meetings we've had, I know when the San Francisco Giants have been leading the Western Division in the National League, you have been beaming proudly. So okay, yeah, so yeah,
You know, it's
I
kind of
guess,
how it goes.
I guess you can't lose, no matter who wins. One of your chosen teams will be hoisting up the championship trophy. So. All right. Well, Dave, the reason I wanted to have you on, of course, is every year our magazine, CropLife, does the annual survey of the top ag retailers in the country. And again, most of those folks are based in the Midwest. And as you might imagine, when we ask them the open-ended question about what are the key challenges facing you in this upcoming season, they always bring up supply chain issues, pricing for crop inputs and commodities, of course, which are tied hand in hand, and labor issues. But there's a good portion of our CropLife 100 that is actually based in California. A lot of ag retailers based out there. I believe the number is around 8 or 9. And for those folks, when I asked that question in the last year or two, water has been the number one concern on their radar going into the season. I know I've been reading a lot about water issues in your neck of the woods recently, but please, if you could fill in our viewers on what the latest is with a little bit of the background on how we got here and what's happening right now.
Well, frankly, I wish I could be a little bit more positive, but California. Well, to put this in perspective, we haven't built a dam or significant water storage in the state since the 1970s. And the next dam will be built is 2035. So we just haven't stored water, and it's a huge problem. A lot of our source of our water is the snowpack, which then melts, feeds the reservoirs. But the snowpack has just been, unfortunately, we just haven't had one. I just looked up the recent numbers today, and in fact, there is no snowpack left in the Southern Sierra, which is very unusual this early in the year. The snowpack near me, mid-Sierra, 3%. Only in Northern California, it's just 20%. The snow is almost gone from the mountains this year. It's not a good thing. So you got the combination of we haven't been able to store the water because we don't have sufficient storage. We let too much of it, in my opinion, flow out to the ocean, basically unused. It's supposed to be used by fish. I mean, that's the argument environmentalists use. And, I understand all that, but there's a lot of studies showing that we're not really benefiting the fish that much. And we're definitely hurting the people because the water's just flowing out to the ocean and it's not being used. So, it's a long-term problem. It's become a building. Problem is in recent years, we seem to have lower than previously thought averages of rainfall. People are starting to rethink this, wondering if we're, I'm sure a lot of your readers are familiar with the mega drought. There's talk where this is just, we're actually entering a cycle where this is actually California's normal weather. And for the previous 100 years, it was unusually wet. Time will tell on that. We'll see. But for the short-term outlook, it's pretty bleak. It's frankly, we don't get snow and water this coming year. The water cutbacks will become truly draconian. Now we're already seeing acreage left fallow. The initial estimate was 500,000. Well, not only have we not had much of a great winter, most of our precipitation comes in the winter months, from November to March. And not only do we not have a lot of precipitation then, it got extremely hot in the winter, or in the spring, unseasonably hot. That thus, the snowpack melted, not that there was much of one to begin with, frankly. There were 500,000 acres estimated to be fallowed. I'm hearing that they've even passed the $1 million estimate. A lot of people on the ground are saying, yeah, it's going to be more like 1.2, 1.3, but nobody really knows. And it's just, they don't have the water to farm it. And your dealers are completely right, because when you talk to a grower, that labor, huge obstacle, but you can't farm without water. You just can't do it. So if you don't have water, you're done. So what we're seeing is the crop mix is definitely going to change in California. It's already starting. Basically, the water is going to flow to its highest and best use. So for farmers, obviously, it's most money you can make. Those are specialty crops, tree nuts, wine grapes, depending on the market and what you grow, of course. So to grow a tree, it's obviously very different. You can't just not water it for a period of time. But if you grow, say, processing tomatoes, that's a crop you're seeing removed. You'll see, well, alfalfa is an interesting case because the dairy industry is so huge in California. It's the #1 dairy state, actually. No offense to your folks in Wisconsin, but it's just true. And there's a lot, my visitors, when I give ag tours, they're always shocked at the number of dairies. It's the first thing they remark on most of the time. That and endless miles of almond trees. So the water will flow to its best use. So as I said, tree nuts, specialty crops, a lot of vegetables, they'll be fine. But a lot of crops, cotton has already been disappearing, processing tomatoes. They will then sell that water to tree fruit farmers in the main, permanent crop growers that have to have the water or, the trees die and end of story. So a lot of this also for, the folks back in the Midwest. If you look at a map of California, a lot of this is on the west side of the valley. Generally, and this is very generally, California water rights are extraordinarily complicated. I'm not going to get into them, but you want to have senior rights over junior rights. Generally, the closer you are to the mountains, the source of the water, usually those have more senior water rights. You get as farther away from the Sierra, so it's the west side of the valley that's just going to really suffer. I was speaking with Roger Isom a few weeks ago. I believe he remains head of the Cotton Ginners Association, but he's also taken on the role of Processors Association out here. And, a lot of nuts and dried fruits, many crops are processed, of course. So they had a meeting and I was talking to him, and they filled a room at the Visalia Convention Center with 400 or 500 people, clamoring for water. This is a really, really serious thing. And unfortunately, in Sacramento right now, we have a super majority of Democrats, and they don't really show any super inclination to, put farmers over the environment. Frankly, that's just how it goes. To them, the environment comes first, and and the environment has to have its water, and you guys can farm with the rest, kind of thing. Like, and it's going to come to a real head if we don't get more precipitation. Frankly, I mean,
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I guess in my mind, okay, the rainfall has been lacking, the snowpack has been lacking. But, obviously, California there, you have a coast, there's a lot of water there. I know you have to desalt it to make it usable for like an irrigation type of thing, but that, you're shaking your head, that obviously is not a possible solution then.
Desal, it's the fuel costs. Now, personally, I think we're going to see necessity being the mother of invention. We'll probably see some better technology. The current technology just uses too much energy. And with, fuel costs rising, that's the last thing, somebody's probably going to look at building today, frankly.
Okay.
And if they did build it, and they will come, like I say, as the technology gets better, but it's going to be for along the coast for all those urban users, frankly. The good thing about it for ag is that hopefully they can take the pressure off, and if they use less of the water from the various aqueducts, state and federal project, that there'll be more water for agriculture. So that's the promise there, but there's no real direct link that I see between desalting or desalinating water and growers.
What about genetics? Because I know for a couple of years I have been following some developments in row cropping plants. I can't remember which ones specifically that are more, they actually work on the gene of the crop so that it's more drought resistant. Is that a possibility for some of the crops they have in California?
Well, the research is going on. It definitely is, but it's my understanding it's so preliminary. It generally takes about, from beginning to end, to develop a new tree takes 15, 20 years probably. So, I mean, they've been working on it for a few years now, but until they have trees out to the growers or vines out to the growers, actually grapevines are much farther along or further along, but that's a little different thing too, because nut growers don't want to stress their trees at all. They just want the biggest crops possible. Wine grapes, a little different story. Most grapes are wine grapes, and especially in California. Well, we have a lot of table grapes and raisins too, but most are wine grapes. But you stress the vines a lot, so that's kind of a different situation because they don't need as much water. But the tree, fruit, and nut growers, they really need a lot more water.
Okay, so at this point, then, what are some proposed solutions besides changing up the crop mix? As I see you're drinking some water, so you obviously still have it in your house, thankfully.
I do. I treasure it though more. Never take it for granted.
No,
you look at rain in a completely different way. Trust me.
Yeah. So, kind of what's being proposed as some options going forward?
Well, that was kind of my point at the beginning. Is we haven't built a dam in the state for 70 years. And if they follow the current timeline, which like nobody believes they will, because the state never does on any of its projects. I mean, remember, well, I'm not going to get into it, but, like I say, 2035 is the estimate of construction completion. And nobody believes it'll be built before 2040. That's the next water storage.
Where would that water be coming from, though, this dam you're
talking? The same, the reservoirs are generally just down from the mountains, as you might sort of expect. The snowpack flows in.
Gravity feed. Okay, yeah.
Right. But our reservoirs, I meant to mention that too. I checked those this morning, and our largest reservoirs are at 50% of normal. Wow. So you can see why we don't have snowpack. The reservoirs are already 50% of normal, the big ones. Some of the smaller ones are full, but it's the big ones we're really counting on, definitely agriculture too. And they're at 50%. So if we don't get the snowpack or precipitation this winter, I have to say, there's just going to be more cuts. It's kind of my point. There's no new source of water. It's
well, I appreciate you setting the table. I wish there was better news there. I mean,
Me too.
2035, geez, I imagine you and I may be retired by then. Hopefully we can find a beach somewhere to be enjoying some retirement upon at that point. So
Indeed. Indeed. Technology, I think, will provide an answer. We'll see if it comes in time. Seriously, I mean, if the drought gets worse, the genetics aren't going to be here in time if this drought happens.
well, and I do remember, I think it was about a year ago, I remember reading about some equipment that they were beta testing or working on that pulled moisture from the air, and it was being used in places like, I think, Israel and other places in the Middle East to actually provide moisture that way. And again, the scale wasn't quite right yet for widespread use, but you're right, that type of technology may be coming to California in the next couple of years to maybe, as it gets perfected and streamlined and becomes, the output becomes greater for that type of equipment. Maybe you'll start seeing those machines.
Necessity is the mother of invention, and there will be hundreds of billions of dollars at stake. So I think it's going to add up to a little invention, frankly.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Well, Dave, appreciate the comments on water's situation in California. I wish you had some better news to share with our viewers, but now we'll try to have a little fun. And on a fun note, it is time for your quiz, Fun with Numbers. So if you're not familiar with the rules, Dave, what this is I will throw a number at you, and then I'm going to give you 4 options that number will one of those will be correct, what that number represents. You pick the correct option, you get a bell sound. And if you did the wrong one, you get a buzzer. So all right, your percentage, it's a percentage, the number is 37%. Okay, so just give that some thought. So does 37% represent? I'm trying to keep this for your neck of the woods. So is 37% A, the percentage increase in gasoline prices in California during May? Is 37% B, the percentage increase in U.S. ag exports since 2020? Is it C, the percentage of decrease in water levels at Lake Mead during 2022? Or is it D, the percentage of first timers playing Fun with Numbers that have gotten buzzed? And I'll tell you just straight off, the D is always a throwaway option just for fun.
Yeah, no. I would guess it's either A or C. I could see both being right. Gas prices are going up so fast. I have no idea what the percentage increase is, but I C, Lake Mead's way down. I'll say C.
Okay, I am sorry, Dave. That is wrong.
Gas prices?
37%. No, actually, it was B. That's the
Really?
percentage increase in U.S. exports since 2020. I ran across an item that said that here in 2022, it looks like we're going to have $191 billion in exports. Soybean is forecast to be at 32.3 billion, which will be a record. Cotton is going to be at 9 billion, also a record, and corn at 19.1 billion. So yeah, that's since the pandemic hit, that is the percentage increase in U.S. ag exports. And the reason I brought that up, of course, is I know a lot of the exports heading to Asia are leaving from your neck of the woods, the Port of Long Beach, I imagine. And so that's why I brought that in. But yes, I guess I fooled you. I'm sure Lake Mead is down. I don't know if it's 37%, but
yeah. No, you did. And of course, Lake Mead, all the dead mobsters from Vegas.
Yes, no, I keep reading about that. Every time I hear about that, I think of the movie Muggsy, I think it is. Warren Beatty.
Right.
I have to laugh, but no, I was trying to end on a more positive note. So
okay, all right, sounds good.
All right, well, thank you for joining us this week, Dave. Appreciate having you on. Hope you viewers enjoyed this little snapshot of what's going on in the California agricultural market. If you want more information, check out Dave's American Fruit Grower magazine and their website. And again, we'll see you again real soon. Thanks for joining us this week. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Eric. It's a pleasure.
If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comment section below. Your feedback is important to us. We will try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.